Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to part 2 of this edition of Real Talk. I'm talking to Councillor Salma Arif from Leeds City Council, who is a portfolio holder, which means she's a cabinet member on the council, and she's responsible for adult social care, active leisure, as well as cultural services in that city. And that in itself is a massive portfolio, employing thousands of people and having a massive budget. Just on social care, the budget was about 250 million, and forget the rest of it. And she is, I've been asking her about her journey into politics, and she started very young, obviously, as she said. And she actually, I didn't realize she was a law graduate and was a practitioner in law, but when she became a councillor, she gave it up because she realized that she had to be a full-time councillor in order to deliver the service that she would like to deliver. So I've been talking about, your role, your journey, and where you come from. You're obviously born in Leeds, of people from the Pakistan origin, ethnicity and origin as well. So politics, as I said to you at the beginning, is a very challenging, and I think you use the word dirty game, because I've been in politics myself for the last 50, 60 years. I know how challenging it and dirty it can be at times. Now, you've been a portfolio holder, like you said. Well, your first portfolio was health, just as COVID hit. Now, that obviously identified a lot of issues around inequalities, as you said, right? And obviously in social care and other areas, throughout the whole of the sort of public sector, we have seen over the years the inequalities have somehow built in to a certain extent. And institutional racism was improved by the Lawrence inquiry. Now, I'm sure different like society. You might be finding some of these issues confronting you on a day-to-day basis. Now, one of the reasons is that we don't have enough people of color or enough women working in these organizations, and therefore the culture is very different. Now, are those some of the issues that you're confronting as well on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, look, being in politics is hard, being a woman is harder, and being a woman of colour is even more harder.
Oh yes, I know, yeah, it must be.
So it's extremely challenging. And I always say, people say to me, why do you want to get involved in politics? It's so toxic, it's dirty. All of those things are true, but alhamdulillah, the things you can do and what you can deliver or helping somebody is priceless, because you can look away and think, I've done something, I can look back and say, alhamdulillah, I've achieved that, I've helped move things forward. So you talked about me becoming a public health cabinet member at the time of the pandemic. At the time, the vaccination was happening at the Leeds Elland Road Stadium, which was about 2 bus stops away, 2 buses to get to Elland Road from my East
From
Leeds.
Hare Hills area.
From Hare Hills area.
Here.
So if you're clinically vulnerable, first of all, you're going to think twice getting onto a bus because you're really nervous about going all the way, getting the vaccination. So because I was a cabinet member, I was able to, alhamdulillah, open a vaccination centre across the Bilal Mosque in Hare Hills. And originally they said to me, the officer said to me, I said, look, trust me on this. We can't expect the community to come to us, we go to the community. If this is, you want to have good health outcomes, there's various different barriers as to why the community isn't coming to us. And they said, okay, we'll try, as you say, because you have political clout, don't you? If you're an exec member, to say, look, this is what I think is a good idea, this is my justification, can we get the officers together to come up with a solution? So they said, okay, councillor, let's go to the Bilal Centre, across the road from Bilal Centre, we'll go in for 4 weeks. We don't think the numbers are going to be great. Okay, let's try, was my answer. First week, it was about 55 people. Second week, even more. Third week, even more. And it just grew and grew. We had that vaccination centre there for a year and a half.
Wow.
There were queues all the way around at one point. That proved my point of, one, why it's important for someone like our background, somebody who comes from the community, understands the communities, understands what the community is saying, and say, look, we need to come up with different solutions. So it's important for me to be at that level. But also I have this same Iqbal by people when I give talks about young people coming to politics. I say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Right, yeah.
People are making decisions.
Good analogy, yep.
People are making decisions about you, okay? So that's why it's so important. And I would, if anybody's considering potentially coming to politics,
how do you respond to people, for example, like me?
Yes.
I mean, I've served now 8 Home Secretaries on equality and diversity, particularly race and Islamophobia. And you know, we've been hitting the head against the wall all these years, and you get to a stage where you think, was it really worth it? How far have we got, right? And to a certain extent, you know, I feel that, you know, we have achieved something, but you still feel that it's still a long, long way to go. And the riots, you know, in August, and the comments by some of the politicians actually showed us, you know, how far actually we've gone backwards. I mean, the people on in the Reform Party, for example, some of the comments that they have made, and the Tory Party as well, the Conservative Party, you know, are absolutely horrendous. And they have affected particularly the Muslim community, you know, really, sort of really badly. So how do you say to people like that after all these years? I mean, I was a member of the Labour Party for 45 years. When I objected to Keir Starmer's position on Israel, I was thrown out. 6 months later, I got a request saying, please join. I said, no, thank you. You know, my principles and my values are more important to me. And unless you change as a political party, I'm not going to come back. Right? So how do you say to somebody like me, I understand your argument, unless you're on the table, you can't make a difference. But people like me have been trying to do that for a long time, and we feel that we haven't succeeded. Do you feel that people like you and the new generation, right? Obviously, for us, English is a second language. You, English is probably the first language. That do you feel that you might be able to make some inroads where we may have failed?
Baba, I don't think you have failed. I think if you weren't there and if you didn't drive some of the work forward, people like me probably wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I feel as though I
don't you make me feel good.
No,
but
no,
yeah, you know what I mean.
I'm being really honest, because there's journeys our grandfathers took when they first came here. My grandfather came in 1939, but a lot of them came in the 60s and 70s.
39, that was one of the earliest person here.
Yes, one of the.
One of the earliest person.
So they went through a lot of things for us to have the privileges that we enjoy today. So I always look back and I can't say, oh, I speak really well English, I'm a cabinet member. All I have achieved is on the back of your struggles. And everything I do, the next generation will benefit from.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So this journey never ends. It never will. Politics changes. We are dealing with a really scary time in politics at the moment.
Yes,
politics has polarised. There's a wave that's coming across. You can see with what's happening in America, across Europe, and it is really, really worrying. The problem lies where a culture shift happens, and the media has a really big role to play. They have made it okay to say things. The media has, politicians have, that stigmatise or scapegoat a particular community. And I think we all have a role to, one, challenge that wherever we see it. And if we're not here and we're not able to challenge that, if you're not at the table, you're not making the decision. So that's my argument, and it always has been. That's not to say, you know, I will always get it right. I won't. So I will always I still pick up the phone to some elderly, you know, people who've been there. How do you manage this? How do you navigate this? We don't always have the answer. And now with social media, Iqbal Bhai, it's really, really difficult.
It's even worse.
It's far more worse.
There's no doubt about it.
Far more worse. So, to answer your question, we walk on your shoulders, and please never think that you've not achieved what you needed to achieve.
But I mean, you know, maybe things have changed in institutions at the moment, because as Macpherson and I sat on the Stephen Lawrence group for a long time, identified that institutionally there's racism in this country. But one of the things we found over the years in our days was that there were people, particularly white middle-class men, in senior management positions who are actually more racist than some of the ordinary working class racists, because there were the barriers there. Do you feel that that sort of mental sort of block has changed a little bit, or the attitude is changing?
I think that it probably does exist in pockets. It still does. Having said that, the faces are changing, and when the faces change, there's a culture change that happens. You can see that even in I'm sure in Bradford Council, in other councils, I've started to now see the faces look different. So there used to be a saying that there are so many Johns that are local councillors across the country, because you'd find older white men being councillors because, one, they had the money to not get, because as you know, elected councillors, not all of them, depending on where you are, don't get paid necessarily a great deal. So older white men had the privilege, or they were retired, or they had the money and they could devote the time. For women, particularly if they have children, they have care responsibilities, it's hard to give up a full-time job and go into politics for the less money that they're getting. But if you've got old white
somebody's
men
phoned
making,
in.
yeah.
So I'm going to have to.
Sure,
Assalamu
sure.
alaikum wa rahmatullah. Who's calling? Where are you calling from, please?
Mrs. Tahir from Bradford.
Mrs. Tahir from Bradford. MashaAllah. What would you like to say?
I have one point because British politicians, they say that without free speech, there's no there's no existence.
Right.
But whenever any Muslim want to dig the reality and he brings in front of people any facts and real, real situation, then he always gets banned and always gets labelized as terrorist.
All right, I see what you.
Lots of criminal.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Mrs.
criminal
Tahir.
level.
Yeah, so they're criminalized because their free speech is selective. Sorry, Mrs. Tahir. I don't know how you got cut off. The free speech, in your opinion, is selective. It's who's saying what, and you're saying if a Muslim person makes the comments, then they're sort of labeled as a terrorist, whereas a white person or a non sort of Asian or black person makes the same comments, then that is then championed as free speech.
Yeah.
I think that's the point you're trying to make, Mr. Tahir. And I totally agree with you. I think that is, it's like that the right wing is now talking about two-tier policing, as if we are less policed than the white community, particularly those who are campaigning against immigration or who are championing racism. So yeah, I think it's a valid point she makes. Do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I think the sister that just phoned in, she's right in what she says. At times, if one community is saying and it's labelled a certain way, and if somebody else says, and that's biases that exist. It doesn't always happen, I'm not saying, but oftentimes you see the undertones of that happening. And this is when I said, and the point I was trying to make before the phone call came in, we're seeing a shift that even I've not seen. That's getting really dangerous, and the demonisation of particularly Muslims and the anti-immigrant narrative that's coming through, and it's actually really, really worrying because if you remember the Hare Hills disorder that happened,
Yes.
18th of August.
Yep.
I put up a video with the local police officers say, please go, stay at home, stay away, try not to come in, because we were getting loads of people coming to the area, so we just wanted to call for calm. Iqbal Bhai, the amount of nastiness I got from certain part of the country or certain people on social media, go home, what are you doing here, you shouldn't be a politician, why are you telling us you should be, really, really nasty things.
Yes, I
so
know.
that's
Yes.
that's what we're dealing with. So I think and then I think one of the answers to that is we need to be again at the table, articulate these are our concerns, these are our worries, this is impacting a certain community, how do we engage with that community? And I think having local voices at the table is so important, and I think because it helps, it really does.
I mean, obviously, Mrs. Tahir has made a very valid point that, we are being sort of this duplicity in attitude. And I'll tell you this, Mr. Tahir, I was until 2 weeks ago the deputy chair of the government's what you call Independent Advisory Group on Hate Crime, and have been for the last 20 years. I started off when I was on the Stephen Lawrence group, and this group has been going for nearly over 20 years, working closely with government. And for the last 10 years, we have been asking for a meeting with the Society of Editors. The Society of Editors are the people who actually decide what goes in newspapers, like the Express and the Mail on Sunday, and the Mail. But they have refused to talk to us completely because we feel that they are being biased and they're very negative towards the Muslim community in particular. Now, obviously, like I say, you need to have people around the table to be able to influence policy and decision making. And I can vouch for that to a certain extent. When I went to work for a very large local authority not far away from here, they had an 18,500 workforce, and the number of people from the Asian community you could count on one hand, and you could still have spare fingers. By the time I left, we had 64 people working from our community. We had prayer facilities. The number of disabled people we had at that time, there was hardly any. By the time I left, again, there was over nearly 250 people of disabled people as there used to be in those days. So things did change slightly, there's no doubt about it. But I mean, you talk about women needing to join politics. How important is it that our women join politics, you know, and try and bring about that change, try and change the mindset, and also in the workforce, for example.
Yes.
I mean, your area of work, social work, absolutely phenomenally important. As you say, aging population, so we need to have women working in that field as well.
Do you know, on your last point, Iqbal, actually, we have a lot of our South Asian Muslim women working in the care sector.
Right, but they will be on the low level.
They are, that's my point.
Exactly,
so they're on the lower level. The pay isn't as great as it needs to be, though there's the flexibility for a lot of the, when I speak to the women and ask what attracts you to these jobs, and it's the flexibility of being able to work around the hours. It's family commitments. So it's your opportunities in life as well. If you know, it's a lower scale, if you're on the lower scale, you're making ends meet, you've got difficulties. So I think for me, not just politics, obviously I want more women to come into politics, but every sector, we need women. And any decision making, policy making, it has to be, we need to be everywhere. We need to be in the banks, we need to be in the financial sector, we need to be in accountancy. Politics is one way of initiating that change. And I just find Muslim women say to me, I'd love to be involved, I'm just really scared. It seems really nasty and it's really difficult. So I encourage, you know, women, Muslim women, because I might bring one thing to the table, Iqbal Bhai, but another Muslim woman might bring something else. And what I also find is when I've got two male colleagues in my ward, the Muslim women ring me because they can talk to me. They can speak to me in Pakistani, in Urdu. They can, and I can have a conversation.
They feel more comfortable.
They feel more comfortable.
It's understandable.
And at the moment, there are two in Leeds City Council. We've got 99 councillors.
Right.
There are only two women.
Muslim women.
Muslim women.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's myself and there's Zara Hussain. So we need, and Leeds is a really diverse city. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's not just LSA.
You've got African Caribbean community as well.
Absolutely. So actually, we need more women representation. If anything, actually, a couple of weeks ago, I took, and it's not like our Muslim women are not doing great work. My goodness, they are. They're not necessarily getting highlighted. So I took about 15 women to go and see the Lord Mayor, Abigail Marshall Kutung. Just to say thank you to these women. They work in third sector organisations, they have their own businesses despite what they're doing, so they are contributing, they just don't get the support that they potentially need. So I think that's my job as well, to put the ladder down for the new women to come.
Well, I think there are a lot of women in Leeds that I know. For example, Hanif Malik's wife, good lady.
Was actually one of them.
Yeah, I mean, some of the amazing work she does in charity is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the Park Lane Foundation, the women from the Park Lane Foundation,
Fantastic.
They do some amazing work as well. So yeah, so carry on. I mean, do you want more women to join not just politics but social care and other professions as well?
And I want them to go all the way to the top. Because we've got the capabilities there, and it is harder. As I said to you, being a woman is hard, being a woman of colour is even harder. But the more women are there, the more then we can support each other. And I think that's why it's not just the care sector, in every sector. Alhamdulillah, we're really fortunate about that.
So I mean, you're a counsellor, a female counsellor of Asian background. I mean, where do you get your moral support from? Because as I say, you've got lots of counsellors. Counsellor Iqbal I know very well. Right, counsellor, you know, there are a few other counsellors over there. In the old days, one of my friend Ghulam Hussain then became a counsellor. You know, I'm not sure I know he's no longer a counsellor. But where do you go for advice and guidance if you feel that you need that moral support? Because being a one person in a massive organisation like that,
I'm not a person. There is 99 counsellors, and obviously we have our own party.
Right.
I'm blessed, alhamdulillah. I've got a good family support network and I've got good friends. But actually, the way I got into politics, I've had a lot of allies, and a lot of them are. There's some South Asian women that, alhamdulillah, are amazing. I can pick up the phone and they understand it. But I've got some equally really nice women that are not South Asian that have helped me, and again, it's my responsibilities to give back now, I feel. And that's why I say, you know, I ask people to shadow me, that really helps. I give references where I can.
Right.
I encourage people to say, right, why don't you do that job? So I try my best as a community, but I get some great support.
When do you feel that you'll be ready to become the leader of the Leeds City Council?
Not yet, and probably never really. That's a job
Why
for
not?
James.
Why not?
That's a job for James Lewis.
No, I mean, he's the leader at the moment. I've
he
met
is,
him a
he
few
is,
times.
he is. He's
Nice
fantastic.
guy.
He's
I mean, I
fantastic.
remember George Moody from the old days
Yes,
when
we
he was
do.
leader of the council. So that shows my age, actually. But yeah, I mean, why not? Why not a Muslim woman become leader of Leeds City Council or Birmingham City Council? I mean, we should be ambitious. Why not?
Absolutely. Actually, I was, again, last week, I was in Liverpool, and Arooj Shah, I don't know if you know her,
No.
she became the first Muslim leader of Blackburn
right.
Council.
Right.
Makes me swell with pride. I suppose you can never say never with anything. At the moment, alhamdulillah, Gipton Hare Hills is a really intense ward. There's a lot of local issues. There's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders.
Well, I
because
mean,
of
that's
the
a huge
nature.
challenge there
Yeah.
in that area as well, because you've got a contrasting area there.
Yes, absolutely. And my next step, really, I'm quite active regionally, doing lots of different things. It's the health inequalities. That's my passion.
One last question. Have you
Yes.
thought about becoming a member of parliament?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Oh, subhanAllah. That's good.
Inshallah, one day. That's the
So
plan.
that's good. I mean, yeah, why? We should have ambition.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. And, you know, we need good Muslim women in positions of power and men to try and influence the change. Now, I know a lot of people say that we've seen what's been happening in Gaza over the last year or so, and lots of Muslim people have been protesting. And again, people, particularly in the Labour Party, which is one of the reasons why I got kicked out of the Labour Party, because I didn't like the policy, that, you know, no influence, nothing has really influenced them. But we have to continue to try. So can I say, Salma Arif from Leeds City Council, thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure having you here, hearing your story, your journey, etc., and the work you do. And I pray that Allah gives you even more strength and the ability to, you know, make a difference, not just, you know, to people's lives, but enhance them as well. I hope you've enjoyed the program, and I thank you for being part of this program again. Inshallah, I'll see you again next week. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Don't forget, may Allah be with you and Allah protect us all. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.